Welcome, Christian. Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you.
Here we are again. Congratulations. 2 more titles in the bag. Tom, you probably slowed down a bit, I think.
No, 2011 was an unbelievable year for us to defend and retain both titles, particularly in the way and manner that Sebastian drove last year was a very, very special year for the whole team. And there were added challenges. There was the movable wing, there was the DRS, and of course new tyres to contend with. And that was particularly gratifying to see how the team, coped, with those changes.
Which gives you the most personal satisfaction, winning it for the first time or successfully defending it?
Well, the different pressures. There's the first time is really special because there's a euphoria of having achieved it. We've done it. We've achieved a world championship and then a double world championship, with the constructors. And then the pressure of expectation changes. Suddenly you've gone from, being quick and winning races to being world champions. And when you turn up and you pull up in that first garage in the first race, then suddenly you realise that you're there to be shot at. And there's some, phenomenal teams that we're competing against. So it's a different pressure. So in many ways, this last championship was even more rewarding because with the added pressure and the manner that we defended those titles and the performances that we put in at circuits that we hadn't been strong at previously, like Monza, like Spa, to win again in Monaco was very special. Was fantastic for the whole team and very satisfying for me to see the team evolving in all areas.
We've touched on Sebastian already with Jake and with DC. He's 24 years old and he's won 2 world championships. I was talking to John Watson on Thursday, a former world championship runner-up and British Grand Prix winner. He hadn't even gone near a racing car when he was 24. I think what Sebastian's achieved at such a young age is remarkable.
How old's John now? He's about 90 or?
Yeah. No. He may even be 100, but he looks good for it, I tell you.
He does look good, doesn't he? He does look in great shape. But no, I mean, Sebastian, at 24 years of age, he's a young man, but he's a young man that's achieved so much, and he's got a very wise head on young shoulders. And technically, he's very strong. Physically, he's very strong, and obviously, he's got an enormous amount of natural talent and intelligence. But above all of that, he's genuinely a nice guy, which doesn't happen that often, to have somebody at the top of their game and to have achieved what he does and maintain a sense of humor and popularity that is quite unique.
He was parachuted into Scuderia Toro Rosso just 3 or 4 years ago and was very quickly a man who was marked. Somebody in your organisation must have known something.
Well, he'd been on the junior program since the age of, I think, 13. So, from karting, he was spotted. He was supported through the karting ranks, and then through the junior program that is based on drivers' performance. He won more races in Formula BMW than any other youngster. He dominated that championship. He then moved into Formula 3. He was a winner in Formula 3. Then drove in the Renault World Series and was combining that with test duties for BMW. And he was a standout guy. And I remember very clearly the first time he turned up at Red Bull Racing as an 18-year-old. He just got his driving license, jumped in a car, drove across from Germany and arrived and said, hi, I'm Sebastian Vettel. I'm a member of the junior team. Can I have a look around? And he took the initiative to do that, to introduce himself. And that's he's maintained that all the way through his career so far.
And he seems so grateful and grounded and happy about it all. You kind of expect him to be awful.
Well, he's a great role model for the sport. He's dedicated to his profession. He's very competitive. He's very hungry, and but he's able to combine that with a good character, with a good sense of humor. He's very popular in the garage, very popular within the team, because he's genuinely, a nice guy. And I remember that, he and his mechanics, they call their cars different names. And I didn't know about this until I saw on the overhead camera this sticker that said Kate's Dirty Sister. And I remember asking, we're going to get into a hell of a lot of trouble from Bernie here or something with stickers like, what's it all about? And they said, it's what Sebastian's called his car. He crashed Kate, and so we thought, this one we'd call her dirty sister. But
I want to meet her, said Red Bull Racing team boss Christian Horner.
But he's got a great rapport, within the team, and his enthusiasm is also something that. His enthusiasm for being a Formula One driver. He feels it's a privilege to be there and doesn't take it for granted, which is very nice to see.
I think what was very enlightening was watching Sebastian watching the VT of the guys who'd won the championship twice, and he seemed absolutely sort of overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, he was very humbled by that, and some great names, some iconic names that came on that screen. I was standing in next to him when that happened, and he was genuinely very emotional about that, and I think the realization started to set in as to to what he's achieved. He's achieved so many records at such a young age, and they motivate him. Going for these statistics is something that he enjoys. So obviously the Nigel Mansell pole position one came up for grabs last year, 15 poles in a year, which is phenomenal achievement, and he was determined to to get that, and
Nigel's been furious ever since.
and he's celebrated with a big bushy moustache.
Sebastian heads into season 4 with Red Bull Racing, looking to become only the third man to win 3 in a row. I mean, that just extends the pressure further, doesn't it?
Well, of course. I mean, for both he and the team, he is the double reigning world champion. He is the one that the drivers are, shooting at, basically. And from a team point of view, we've won the constructors the last 2 years. So, other teams, they're wanting to get back. They're wanting to re-establish themselves. And I think that it's a different type of pressure, but he handles that pressure remarkably well. And I think in many respects, getting that first championship out the way, having got that on his CV at the end of 2010, winning it so dramatically at the last race, I think in many ways released him and released the pressure. He got that world championship on his CV, and he just made another step in 2011 and drove with such composure and confidence. And I think the exciting thing about Sebastian is, at only 24 years of age, he's still evolving, he's still getting better, and I think the best is yet to come from him.
I mean, Michael Schumacher is 18 years older than Sebastian. It's terrifying to think how much more time and how many more wins and championships and records Sebastian's got ahead of him.
It's difficult to look like that because it all depends, obviously, in the circumstance that you're in, the equipment that you have at your disposal. But it is, Sebastian can have a very long career ahead of him, and he's genuinely passionate about Formula One. He loves what he's doing, and I'm sure he's going to be around for a while to come.
And for 2012, of course, you have retained Mark Webber. As a team boss, how do you reflect on Mark's performances last year? It's easy to knock him, isn't it, when you compare him with Sebastian? Well,
it's very difficult going up against a driver of Sebastian's caliber, being matched and measured against somebody of Sebastian's standard. And Mark had a difficult start to the year, but he adapted and he worked hard at it, and he worked hard to understand the tyres in particular, and his performances grew and grew throughout the year, and it was great to see him win that final race in Brazil. And I think he's gone away and trained hard over the winter, and his enthusiasm, I think, is rejuvenated. And I think 2012, could be a very strong year for Mark. So, and for us, it's a great pairing. Okay, there's over a 10-year age difference between the two of them, so they're guys at different stages in their career, but they push each other very hard, and they bring the best out in each other, I think.
And of course, the truth is, Sebastian couldn't win the Constructors' Championship on his own, could he?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Mark's put in some great performances last year, and he raced very, very well. I mean, some of the overtakes he made last year were phenomenal. That pass on Fernando Alonso into Eau Rouge was was unbelievable. And coming from the back of the grid in China on a different strategy, all the way up to third position. Again, another great driver. He drove some super races in 2011. He had some difficult starts, but I know he's been focused on that, and it's something that the team have been looking to help him with as well. And so hopefully, if those little things can be addressed, I'm sure that he's set for a strong campaign in 2012.
He puts a lot of pressure on himself. He knows, doesn't he, that in the wings you have Jean-Eric Verne, Daniel Ricciardo, a lot of quick young guys who would kill at the chance to get in a Red Bull racing car.
Yeah, but that's normal for any top athlete or sportsman, or whether that be in football or in any other category. So Mark has got confidence in his own ability. We're fortunate to have two guys as talented as Jean-Eric and Daniel that fully deserve their chance in the Toro Rosso, and it'll be fascinating to see how they evolve. And there's nothing guaranteed to those guys. They've got the opportunity, and it's now down to them to take that opportunity and to develop. And the fascinating thing for us is that we'll be able to see, compared with each other, how they're progressing.
Sebastien Buemi's joined the Red Bull Racing ranks as reserve driver, having lost his Toro Rosso race seat. Does that send out mixed messages to Sebastien? He's been dropped from the race seat, but he's actually a reserve driver for the senior team.
Well, Sebastian's been a member of the junior team, again, from Formula BMW days. So his opportunity in Formula One came through Red Bull. He had 3 years as a race driver and put in some strong performances for Toro Rosso, as that team was also going through some changes. Sebastien is a very competent driver, and technically he's very strong. He does some excellent work for us on the simulator. So when the decision, and it's always a tough decision, when the decision was made to say, okay, we're going to give the youngsters a chance, it was entirely logical to say, right, okay, well, let's keep Sebastien within our pool of drivers because he knows the team, he's technically very competent, he's got 3 years of experience, and is a very capable driver in the event that a reserve driver is needed for either Red Bull Racing or our sister team at Toro Rosso. So he's going to be kept very busy this year, and we're very pleased to have him with us.
Let's just talk about this year's car. Obviously, Adrian Newey and his team will have started that some months ago. Are you confident of where you're at with the new car in terms of its gestation period?
It's always a difficult thing to tell at this time of year because, it's the month of January. We don't see any of the other teams. So there's obviously bits of speculation that float around and snippets that come out here and there. But we're very much focused on keeping our heads down, on going about our own business. And at the end of the day, it only counts what happens in Melbourne onwards. And at the moment, things seem to be progressing well. The factory is incredibly busy, as I'm sure all the teams are at this time of the year. And of course, there's the added challenge this year of having to pass the crash tests prior to the car running for the first time. But that's the same for everybody. And we're burning the midnight oil in Milton Keynes at the moment.
And of course, changes involve no rear diffusers, no forward-facing exhausts. Does that present new challenges to Adrian and his team?
Well, there's been big changes over the last few years, whether it was getting rid of the F-duct, getting rid of the double diffuser. There's always been changes in evolution and introductions like, the DRS and new tyres. We got rid of refueling a couple of years ago. So that's all part of Formula One. And I think as a group, as a technical group, I think we've proven to be adept at changing to different regulations, but you never know what the others are up to, and we don't underestimate Ferrari, McLaren, or even Mercedes, and we'll only know where we are when the fuel comes out of the car for qualifying in Melbourne in 8 or 9 weeks' time.
And when are we going to first see the car, do you think? When's the launch?
February.
At that first test, you'll reveal it at Jerez, will you?
We plan to be at that first test. Yes, that's on our schedule. So, there's not a lot of mileage for the guys this year. 3 tests before the first race with one car. You can only test one car. The drivers share that car equally, and so it's not a lot of mileage before you get into the season. It's a long year this year. 20 races is a grueling season, going all the way to the end of November, and I'm sure the season will take different turns and paths as the development race really heats up, particularly as we head back to Europe for the start of the European season.
Would you advocate more testing?
I think it's tough. We do a lot of racing. Always prefer to do more racing than testing, and I think we've got the balance about right at the moment. We've got a limited amount of pre-season tests. We've introduced an in-season test, which will take place at Mugello after the first batch of flyways, and we've increased the amount of filming days that, for example, a young driver can run in. I think it's 8 days now that a young driver can do limited amount of mileage in, which wasn't in a current car, which wasn't previously permitted. So it's always finding that balance, because I think opening the testing would be not constructive for Formula One, because the costs are just so prohibitive, and we're doing more racing than we've ever done. So 20 races in the year is an awful lot of events, and I think it makes the steps that you make in evolution with the development, in many cases, bigger and more interesting, rather than evolving through thousands and thousands of kilometers of testing that is often shut to the public and nobody really sees a benefit from.
You talk about prohibitive costs, just briefly, before we give some British Grand Prix tickets away. FOTA, the Formula One Teams Association, the body that was set up to act as a voice for the teams. Red Bull Racing no longer part of that. There's been, in the past few months, a sort of seismic shift away from FOTA. Do you think it has a future?
I think FOTA achieved some great things in the beginning when the crisis came along in terms of stripping out costs from Formula One. I think FOTA, over the last 18 months or so, had lost its way, and that's why Red Bull decided to say, okay, we're going to step out for now, because we don't feel it's going in the right direction, and we're just going to be, going to stand on the sidelines for now and see how things evolve. But we'll see. There's still, I think, 8 members of FOTA. We will no longer be a member from the end of this month. But I wish them the best of luck for the future.